So now that you understand what trauma is and how it works, let's talk a little bit about how therapy can heal trauma. Remember, trauma is that residual emotional charge attached to unpleasant memories. And what really effective, permanent, long-lasting therapy does is it gives you the opportunity to release that emotional charge in a safe environment where you receive love and support in response to expressing the feeling attached to the memory of whatever it is from the past that happened that didn't feel good at the time. Now, once that emotional charge has been fully released and expressed, the memory is no longer so powerful. It can no longer get triggered by day-to-day situations, and this is why trauma healing is so powerful. No matter what has happened to you in the past and whatever emotional overwhelm it may have caused in the moment that it happened, once those emotions are fully released via some kind of trauma therapy or somatic therapy, the event will no longer be triggered by current day events. And that means that the memory now just becomes a memory of something that happened rather than a painful memory with a lot of emotion attached to it. And because of the way memory works in our brain, what often happens from then on is that we start to forget the painful things that have happened to us. Not because we're trying to repress them or suppress them, but simply because the emotional charge has been fully expressed and fully dealt with, and therefore the memory is not so powerful anymore. So we start to forget the painful things that have happened to us. And again, this is another step towards true freedom. Now, it's important to note that trauma doesn't just exist in our mind. The effect of trauma can go deep into our central nervous system and can create physical symptoms in our body as well. When we're hanging on to strong emotions of anger or fear or rage or sadness, grief, guilt or shame, these emotions can actually show up in our physical bodies because our brain and our body are connected via our central nervous system. What this means is that healing trauma needs to deal with physical sensations in our body, particularly if we have very early childhood experiences that we don't remember. It's very difficult to heal these during a normal talking therapy session by talking about what happened because we may not remember what happened. The emotional part of our brain is fully formed at birth, and so we can remember the emotional impact of events long before our brain has fully finished connecting up the wiring required to remember the actual circumstances of those events. So in a situation like this, really the only way to liberate a traumatic event from our nervous system is by accessing it through the bodily sensations that we get. And that's why when I'm working with a client, I'm always asking them, where in your body do you feel this? What does it feel like? What shape is it? What color is it? Now, often, because the feelings that we're talking about here are unpleasant, we have had a long history of trying to suppress them, to push them down, to push them away, or to try and avoid them. And often as adults, we've adopted behaviors that allow us to avoid getting these traumas triggered. So we'll be walking around avoiding situations that might trigger them, and when they do happen, we try and push the feeling away. But what I do with my clients is I invite them into a safe place to actually feel the feeling and allow it to arise out of the nervous system, up into the brain, and be fully expressed. Once again, once the feeling is fully expressed, the emotional charge is gone, the stress and tension from the body gets liberated, and the person experiences a heightened sense of freedom because they're no longer bogged down by feeling anxious about things that used to be very frightening, or angry about things that used to cause a lot of rage, or sad about things that used to cause a lot of grief. So essentially, therapy heals trauma by providing a safe place to access these feelings. Now you might wonder, well, why would I want to do this? Like, why would I want to go through the unpleasant experience of processing and feeling all these unpleasant emotions when what I really want in life is to be happy and to be joyful and to be free of depression, anxiety, mental illness, struggle, all of that bad stuff? Do I really need to do all this stuff? Well, that's a good question. The reason why we want to heal trauma from our early life or from the past is so that it doesn't get triggered in the present. Our tendency in Western society is to suppress any strong emotion. And when you suppress anger, sadness, fear, guilt or shame or any of the unpleasant emotions, you tend to end up suppressing peace, love, joy, happiness, excitement, all the pleasant emotions as well. And notice I don't call these good emotions or bad emotions. In my book, all emotions are good because they give us information that we can use. However, some of them don't feel pleasant. Some of them feel like we'd rather not experience them, and some of them feel really pleasant. We'd like more of those. The reason for going to therapy is to let go of the unpleasant emotions by processing them so that we can feel more of the pleasant emotions. And you should expect in a session with a therapist who's really on the ball that he will take you into the unpleasant emotions to a degree that is not overwhelming. So you will feel some strong, painful stuff, but not to the point where it's like, oh, I'm overwhelmed, I can't take this. And then bring you back out again so that by the end of the session, you feel happy. You feel happier and more joyful and lighter than you did at the start. And this is a key part of the trauma healing process because it's rewiring your brain with the information that unpleasant feelings are okay to experience. They don't have to persist forever. You can in fact go into a very unpleasant feeling, come back out again and feel really good afterwards. After you've done this a few times, it starts to rewire the mechanism in your brain that was causing you to suppress these feelings in the first place. And your brain starts to learn on a very deep level that it's okay to have unpleasant feelings. We don't need to run away from them anymore. They can come and they can go, and like everything in life, nothing ever stays forever.